In this video, I'm going to go over how to set up this fallen leaves effect for the environmental effect series. Please let me know if you have any comment, questions, or any request, and I will try to get to it as soon as I can. Alright, let's get started. So for this type of effect, usually what I would do is try and prototype it a little bit. So if I have the time, I would go in and make the textures and slowly bring them in and then make the effect. But let's say I'm pressed for time and I want to do it pretty quickly and I don't have the time to do a texture. This is one technique that I've learned a long time ago, which depends on your vegetation artist and how they set up their trees. So for an effect like this, for example, part of the reason that we do something like this, it would be for immersion. So let's say the player is walking in a forest, or it's a cutscene or whatever, and there's a lot of wind, but there is no leaves falling, or there is nothing in the world to show that it's actually alive. So adding these type of effects is what gives it that immersion. So, like I said, depending on your vegetation artist, usually you would get in the materials, you would get a texture that comes like this. So what I usually do is I take a shortcut, which I use the alpha, cut this out, and then basically just copy the individual leaves or whatever leaves I like here and there, and then do an atlas with a 2x2. So what I mean by that is I will take this texture, export it. So it would be, for example, something like this. All right, so I'm going to go to Asset Actions, Export, and I want to export this into a TGA. So after that, I'm just going to open Photoshop and slowly just make the texture come together. All right, I'm gonna go open and texture. So now, as you can see, I have all of my leaves here. So what I'm gonna do is go to the channel tab and go to the alpha. Here, basically I have all the outlines of any leaf that I want, so I can just copy that and just take it into a different texture. So what I'm gonna do is go to new and custom. Basically I would do this in 256. You can do it at 1024 if you want. It's up to you. Okay, next up, oh, this is in gray. For the channels, to change that, just go to mode and change it to RGB. And you want to add another channel, which is going to be the alpha. After that, okay. So after that, I want to do this so I can actually divide my atlas into 4 different textures. So by doing that, I can come into here and just use the magic wand and literally just select whatever leaf that I want and copy and paste it over there. So for this one, I just want to see like how they look like. I think this one should be nice. So I'm going to highlight the alpha and basically just click it. Then to copy it, you need to have everything selected, not just the alpha, because if you just copy whatever is highlighted here, you're just going to copy the alpha. So you're going to shift click and control C. And over here, you're going to control V. So now, as you can see, you have your alpha, RGB basically. So that way you can control this however you like. Let's see. Oh. I don't want this to be, okay, yep. it again, yep. And just move it around. Just wanted to find like a good angle for it. I think this should be nice. Okay, I'm gonna go back here and just pick another one. Wand, you select the alpha. I'm gonna select this one. Shift, click, Control C, and Control V. So now you're basically just copying over everything with the alphas and everything that's attached to the texture itself. Okay, save this one. I'm just trying to find another one that looks a bit better. I think that one looks good. Okay. What I'm trying to do is just not have them intersect here, so the actual atlas for the texture wouldn't really have a seam or anything in there. Let me see. I'm gonna take this one. All right, so technically the texture is done. Let's take a look at it here. Yep. I mean, if you want to, you can change the background to black. I'm just gonna keep it the same because it really doesn't matter. I already have my alpha and everything. So I'm gonna go File, save a copy, and do it in Targa, which is TGA. Leaves and save. That's basically it. I'm gonna close this because I don't need it. I've already set up a folder here, which it's basically in the sample map thing. I'm gonna go to VFX, texture. I'm just gonna import it. So as you can see, RGB and the alpha. For this one, I decided to keep the color because it actually just matches the color from here. So I shouldn't change that because it will look a bit off. But if I want to do that, I could do it in the material by using the green channel for this. So I would use this, for example, and then add a particle color to it if I want to change it over time or so on. Okay, for this one, I'm just gonna make a material. Gonna add a texture. To add a texture sample, it's T and click. You hold down T and then you left click the mouse button and you'll get the texture. I'm just gonna do this. So we're just going to add a particle color and basically just multiply it. For the multiplication, you hold M and then you left click and you should have that. This is the shortcut for it. So I'm going to add the alphas in here. This into the emissive, and for the color should be here. Technically, it doesn't need me to add the color in here, but it's fine. Oh, but what I meant by changing the color here is what you can do to if you want it to be, if you want to change the color and the particle itself, you can do it by just using the green channel because it's the one with the highest quality and also it is basically a grayscale. So yeah. Change this into translucent and unlit into sided. Okay, that's good. I'm gonna save this. I'm gonna go to the effects, Niagara system. Choose an empty one and call this falling leaves. So I'm gonna add the actual material in here. Okay. So under the emitter update, you want to get a spawn rate, which is the third one, and let's try 1, 5. So this is the material that you're gonna get. And now to actually get the sub UVs divided, you go to sprite renderer and you do 2 by 2. So that way you'll get basically the first frame. To actually get the different frames to play or to randomize, you go to the particle spawn, do sub UV animation, and you set this to random. So now under the sprite renderer, now every time a particle is going to spawn, you're going to have basically your particle spawn in a random frame. So that way it doesn't just spawn one particle and place through the 4 of them. Okay, next I want to actually put it in a shape where, like, for example, I have let's say, for example, I have these right now like this, but I would have them in more of a spherical shape. So there is a shape location. And of course here you can choose which one you want. I would generally just go with the sphere because you're gonna basically add it into your scene, and it would be depending on how big the tree is and how you actually want it to look like. So for me, I'm just gonna do it this way. Or actually, just so I can see it, I'm just gonna take it to here. Oh, yeah. So I'm gonna keep it like that for now. So the first thing I'm gonna do actually is change the size and the actual rotation. And part of the reason that you would do that is to actually have a bit of randomcy, I guess that's what it's called. To not have something look the same thing, like the same thing every time it spawns. So that way it doesn't break the immersion of it. Because human eye picks up a lot on the on patterns. So you want to make it unrecognizable as much as you can. So under the rotation mode, set that to random. So that way, every time it spawns, it will spawn in a different rotation. So that way, no matter how it spawns and you have it rotating with a rotation rate, it would look good. I'm going to set the size into a random uniform. 20 to, let's say, 40. Yeah, looks about right. So that way, when it starts falling, for example, it would look, at least from the size perspective, to look better. Or it looks matching, sorry. Okay, next thing I want to do is add rotation. This is going to be the rotation rate. So the difference between the rotation mode and rotation rate is under the update, when you do a rotation rate, this will actually make them spin. So let's say I do it at like 5,000. So they would spin basically. If I do it on the particle spawn, like I did with here, this is going to be only active when it spawns. Like it's not going to change over its time. Only under the particle update, this is going to be over its lifetime. So for this one, let's do 50. Okay, actually, I'm going to change this into a uniform float, which is it's going to be 1 in the -50. and one and positive. Oh wait, no, not this one. Okay, random range float. So you would basically have it, for example, at 80. No, 50 at the minimum and 80 on the maximum, for example. So they would have different rotation rates, and it wouldn't look the same. Okay, so for that, I'm gonna save this. Okay, next I want to add a little bit of gravity. So I'm gonna add a gravity force. For this one, it's basically just asking for the solve forces and velocities module. So just hit fix issues and it should be fine. So for this one, it is a consistent fall, and that's a bit heavy because you don't want something like that. Leaves are like basically even less weight than a piece of paper, basically. Okay, so for this one, I'm gonna add two things here. So a drag. So I would slow it down. So let's say I put 10 drag. So now it slowly falls instead of it just going fast. Next, I'm gonna add a wind force because I do want it to go in the direction of the wind. If there's wind in the level, usually you'll attach it to a parameter in the blueprints or a parameter, or depending on what engine you're working with, there would be a parameter that allows you to hook this up to wind. So the stronger the wind is, either it gives you more, like you spawn more based off of the strength, or less. So it depends. So for this one, it looks a bit weird. So let's play a little bit with the, let's see. Let's play a little bit with gravity. So I'm gonna actually try and do it as a curve. I don't need the X and Y. The only thing I'm gonna need is the Z for now. I'm gonna do it at 980, I think it was. So it's gonna be from 1 to 0. So it starts off really big. Like it'll start off, like for example, at negative 980, and then by the time it gets to here, it'll be 0. So it looks something like this. See, like it starts really, starts the gravity, and then over time it just lets it die. Let's try actually do an auto. Okay. Actually, also adding to this would be vortex force, sorry. Or if you don't want vortex force, you can do turbulence, I think. I guess not. So just stick with this one then. So this adds a bit of randomization to it when it falls, and it gives it a little bit of turbulence, basically. So if I turn this off right now, they will all fall into the same direction, and it wouldn't have any randomization. But with this, it gives it a bit of that randomization. Okay, so the next thing that I want to look into is how they're spawning. Because right now they're spawning like just popping into existence. So what I want to do is actually ease them in. So I'm going to use the alpha to actually do that. So in the alpha, you do a curve. And then you would have it, the beginning key point as 0, and then you would have the last one at 1. So this basically will have you fade in the particles. But what you want to have is add another key here, like have it like not slowly, but like quickly fade in. So that way it wouldn't really feel like it's popping into the world. And even if the player looks at this tree, for example, so if I take this here, the system itself, like even if they looked at it from the bottom, for example, and looked up, they wouldn't see that it's actually fading into existence or anything, because if you actually have it pop into existence, it might actually look more weird, and it might break the illusion. Okay, I think that's it. So the other thing is basically just trying to get it to look right with the tree and how it spawns from there, and how much you would want it to spawn, because you don't want it to spawn a lot, because that would kind of break the purpose of the effect. Because imagine if you have a spawn rate of like 20, that's a lot of leaves falling, and basically it would mean that the tree should be basically leafless in like 2, 3, maybe 5 seconds. So it depends. I'm gonna go into this, the drag, set that to 5. Spawn rate, I'm gonna set it back to 2. And for the shape, I am gonna actually increase it because I want more in there. So let's see how that looks like. Actually, even if you want to, you can actually go in to the spawn rate and do something like really crazy, like 500, just to see like how big your shape is, and like would this actually work or not. So that is not bad, but I'm gonna actually make it even bigger. Shape, say 500. You also don't want it to basically fade in from, see, like this is not good, because it's fading it from the outside of the tree, and you don't want that. Let's see. Let's do 400 then. Okay, that should be fine. Gonna actually increase its lifetime to 8. Take the spawn down to like 2 or 4. Now when you look at it, it looks more like falling leaves, and not just basically them. It look more like falling leaves and not heavy like stones or anything. But anytime you're trying to do an effect like this, make sure that the environment around you, like, it gives a feeling of life, not lifeless environment. But yeah, the only thing that I would basically do here is just mess with my edit, like the particle in the world, and take it up a little bit more to the top. Like I said, this is basically a template for you to do whatever you'd like with it. I personally just do this for games, and if you want to have like, usually, actually, you would collaborate with Tuck Artist, where you would have your leaves falling from the trees, and then they would have like a system, a blooper system, or just a system in general for leaves on the floor that would basically act as the continuation to this effect, where it would basically just hit the floor, collides, and like disappears after a second. But yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you so much for watching.